What's good? Welcome back to another episode of the FinsFocus podcast. We are back and we have a bunch of different things that we're going to talk about as it is the middle of the off season. So there's always going to be there's not going to be one certain storyline that's going to really carry a podcast right now. It's not like we're in mid-season, but I think we are going to start with Xavien Howard being released just because to me that was the biggest news. But first, Tyler, how are you? How are you doing?
Well, you just made me feel a lot worse when you go into Xavien Howard like that. I mean, obviously not happy about that, but doing well overall. Like you said, we're at an interesting point in the offseason where things are just about to start to pick up. I mean, the combine all the coaches are there and they're doing interviews. There's some McDaniel presser that we're going to get to. But yeah, overall, I'm doing good. Excited to talk some Dolphins. Obviously, there's some good, there's some bad, and it's kind of just a mixed bag right now.
100%. So we'll start with Xavien Howard. He was officially released, designated as a post-June 1st cut, and I believe that saves us around $18 million, but that's for the next league year, so that's something to keep in mind. For me, this was heartbreaking. He's right there on my wall, and he's kind of what made me fall in love with the sport and the Dolphins. It was him and Jarvis Landry they really made me fall in love with the sport, and to me, it was just really depressing that Xavien Howard has been here he's the longest tenured Dolphin, and he's been here for so long and has played elite football for so long. And it just sucks that now when we project to do anything, even though who knows, we might, be fraudulent again and lose in the playoffs again. At least right now we're projected to do something and win some games and really contend for a Super Bowl. And Xavien Howard's not going to be on the roster. And that just doesn't resonate or doesn't sit well with me. I just thought he would be on the roster once we're good just because he has been that elite corner at one of the toughest positions in the game for so long, and we could just never put a team around him. So it was just really sad for me, and I honestly, I wasn't shocked, and I'm sure Tyler wasn't either just because, the contract stuff and everything he was saying. It was just kind of a solid point in time for both sides to move on. But it was just really sad when it officially happened because I was really hoping some way, somehow, that there would be a way for them to come to some sort of resolution. And obviously that wasn't possible, but it was just really unfortunate to see a guy like that who at least captured my heart for football leave the team. I'm really excited to see what he does and where he goes. I'll obviously still be following him, but it really sucked. It was really like a dagger to the heart, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like you said, it's not that Xavien Howard, it's not that we're cutting him now. It makes sense to cut him now. It's the fact that all of the years that he was on this roster, I think every year except for his rookie year in 2016, I think you can count all of those as underperforming seasons for the team. And he never got to witness a playoff win in a Dolphins jersey. I mean, he's probably going to go sign with, I would assume, some contender, hopefully now go, perform in some high-stakes playoff environments, but it's just awful when you think about the fact that he went so long in his Dolphins career, didn't get to be here for a playoff win, and was just one of the best Dolphins defenders that we've ever had. He's firmly on my list of favorite Dolphins too. I mean, he's right up there with guys like Jarvis Landry. Reggie Bush is my favorite Dolphin of all time, so I would say those are probably my top three guys. And just knowing that, we let Jarvis Landry go, and that was a similar situation where obviously we got rid of him, didn't get to see him get any playoff wins. You get rid of Xavien Howard. It really does hurt. There's not much else to say about it. Like I said, it makes logical sense. You get a lot of cap flexibility because of it. He had a huge cap hit that is now off the books. You can go make different moves, hopefully bring back some of your other guys. But just not being able to have him perform when you thought that, hey, maybe this Jalen Ramsey, Xavien Howard duo is the next big thing, it never really came to be.
Oh, yeah. Again, I can't say how much, it makes sense to do this. It's more like my brain knows why, but my heart doesn't. My heart doesn't know why we had to do this. Obviously, I understand why, and it really did make a lot of sense just where the Miami Dolphins are cap-wise and where they are in their kind of cycle of this rebuild or of this evolution of the team of where they are. It doesn't really make sense to have a 31-year-old Xavien Howard on the team making what I think the cap it was $25 million for next year or somewhere in the 20s.
They get 16
something like 16 to 18 million
post
coming back
June
next
1st.
year. Yeah, so it made so much sense. It just really sucked. We'll quickly hit on. Also, before I end that, actually, he should have won Defensive Player of the Year in 2020. I know that's super random, but he actually should have. The year before, Stephon Gilmore won, and the edge rushers had a better year than the Xavien Howard Defensive Player of the Year candidacy in 2020. So it made no sense they didn't win. He did everything that Stephon Gilmore did, but he also had double-digit interceptions. Anyways, that's a hill I'm willing to die on, and I will fight anyone to the death on that. So he should have been the Defensive Player of the Year, but unless you have
I won't bring up how I was Byron Jones pilled that year and thought that Byron Jones was the catalyst for Xavien Howard's intercept. I won't bring it up.
Let's not talk about it. You're kicking me while I'm down, Tyler.
He still would have been my DPOY only because he was a Dolphin. He had one of the best corner seasons of the last decade. But yeah, we can continue.
Yeah. Anyways, got too caught up in the moment there. But Emmanuel Ogbah also was released. This was another guy who actually played some really solid ball for the Dolphins, especially under Brian Flores. And I looked back and I actually had made one like a graphic on Twitter or whatever, or X now, I guess. But I had put out a graphic, and at one point I had said that he was like on the graphic, it was like the top 5 Dolphins, and he was number 5. So at some point, like at least in my eyes, he was a top 5 Miami Dolphin on the team. And now he's been released. And again, this is another similar situation where he was actually a really good, solid player. But obviously last year with the scheme change and everything, it just kind of really didn't make sense. And this was another more unsurprising move for the Dolphins to make.
Yeah. The thing with Ogbah is that I remember going into last offseason, it was a big discussion over who we were going to give the tag to and who we were going to keep of the two. Not even last offseason, the offseason before, of Mike Gesicki or Emmanuel Ogbah. And we ended up giving Gesicki the tag and then having him play out on the tag and then re-signing Ogbah long-term. And I thought that was the right move just because of how good Ogbah was in that Flores scheme. But the thing is that almost all of his production was predicated on being in that Flores scheme and being somebody who was just really good at taking advantage of when he got those like free hits on the quarterback. And he wasn't exactly like a one-on-one winner the way that we needed with Fangio and the way that we're going to now need with Anthony Weaver, where you do need guys who can go win one-on-one. Emmanuel Ogbah's sack numbers were definitely inflated. And yeah, like you said, he played some good ball, but it was definitely time to move on. I mean, even with the depth we have, he's not really a scheme fit, and there are just other guys that are more pertinent when it comes to bringing him back, and his money just wasn't going to work out.
Exactly. I mean, he got pushed on the depth chart. I mean, he was the 4th edge rusher making $18 million. That was never going to fly, especially on a team like this. So that was pretty unsurprising. Something that is not surprising, but it could be surprising, is Terron Armstead is still kind of going over his retirement plans and what he's planning on doing. Because at first he said he's mulling retirement, which kind of caught everyone off guard. But then there was some stuff that came out where he was talking about training and stuff, and you're thinking, okay, he's coming back for 1 year. But then McDaniel comes out today at his press conference at the Combine, and he says, he's still mulling over that decision, so we don't really know. Obviously, if he decides to retire, that does give you some more flex when it comes to the cap. But the issue is with that flexibility, you also open up a huge hole at left tackle. So it kind of goes both ways with that.
Here's the interesting thing with Terron Armstead, in my opinion. If you keep him and he doesn't retire, sure, you don't have that flexibility, which stinks, and then you supposedly don't have a hole at left tackle. But what is stopping him from playing 4 to 6 games next year? He will not play. I mean, if he plays over 12, I think the city of Miami Gardens should throw a parade. If Terron Armstead plays more than 12 games, he just hasn't in this Dolphins. He doesn't consistently play. And I think if you're a Dolphins fan, I know that trying to not convince, but hoping that an all-pro, Pro Bowl type player retires is kind of a weird thing to ask for. But I think the flexibility at this point might be more worth it than having him on the roster at whatever his cap hit is, which is close to $20 million. I think if you can get some relief off of that, you can bring back a Kendall Lamb. You can run it back with, guys like Keon Smith off the bench who weren't even that bad at left tackle, and then maybe just draft somebody in the mid to late rounds and hope they pan out, or sign a mid-tier free agent. I think I would rather dedicate $10 million to Kendall Lamb, Keon Smith, and insert third name here than $20 million to Terron Armstead. That's just where I'm coming from on it.
To be honest, because for me at least, I think when he's on the field, and I know you think this too, I mean, he's elite. There's nothing that...
Oh, yeah, no, he's an awesome player. Except last year you saw that there were times where he was on the field and he clearly wasn't fully healthy. And then he was not nearly as good as he could have been because he kept fighting injuries. And it's great to see him get out on the field. But when you're playing at that price tag and you have that name value attached, there's no more excuses when you are injured. And I know that he's constantly talking about how much he's fighting and how much he, is working to get back to be, how much he has to go through. But at some point, there are no excuses when you're making that kind of money. So I don't know. I don't think he's retiring, but I don't think that him retiring is necessarily a bad thing for Miami, especially considering they really need the cap flexibility right now.
I'd probably argue I'd rather him not retire, just under the circumstance that I don't think Kendall Lamb's going to go anywhere and get a considerable amount of money. Obviously, that's definitely possible with the way he played. He was actually fairly solid every time he came in for Terron Armstead or started in place of him. But to me, if you can re-sign Kendall Lamb for anything relatively cheap, I don't want to put a number on it or a figure on it right now because we don't even know what the market's going to look like. To me, if you can have that and you have Terron Armstead for 10 games and you have Lamb for the 6 to 7, you're getting some pretty decent play at that left tackle spot. And I'd rather have that than, taking a guy in the mid rounds, hoping they pan out and relying on the development from Butch Berry, Frank Smith and company. Like, I trust them a lot, but to be a team that's contending, I do think you need a guy that is capable at left tackle. And I don't want to be going in with a guy who, we're just kind of hoping and praying just because we've done enough of that. It's time to, actually do something, which is funny that I'm saying that. Now I'm thinking out loud. It's like, we're hoping and praying for him to be healthy too. So it kind of goes both ways with that.
That's where I land on it is I think that, having a Terron Armstead, awesome if he's healthy. He isn't going to be healthy consistently, and you're going to still need a sixth offensive lineman and a second left tackle that you have confidence in, because chances are you will be in December and January and he won't be on the field. And that's just where I kind of lose some hope. And it's like, would you rather have, 8 to 10 games of Terron Armstead, 6 to 8 games of Kendall Lamb or whatever, and then you have to add another... I mean, would you rather have that for $10 extra million or have that $10 extra million get 8 games out of Kendall Lamb, 8 games out of insert free agent or draft piece X, and then have, I don't know, $10 million to go spend on linebackers so you're not hoping and praying there? It feels like either way, no matter how much money is dedicated to a guy like Armstead, you're still going to be hoping and praying at that left tackle spot, and you could take $10 million and turn that into, we don't have to worry about another hole on our roster, be it linebacker, interior defensive line, corner, whatever it's going to be. It's just, I don't know. I think I would rather have that money to go shore up something else, because I think that the amount of money you're paying tackle right now, I think when you average out the grade of having Terron Armstead on the field versus off of it, I'd rather have a consistent C for $8 million than 10 games of A and 7 games of F for $20 million.
And that's so fair. Like, to be honest, that's so fair. Like, I've no holes in your argument, but to me, I just rather have the elite guy there, especially if you're just going to contend. Like in the position we're in, it's, I don't know. This kind of leads us into like a discussion we can have. It's like, let's say, like, regardless of Terron Armstead, we know we need a left guard, because whether you're re-signing Isaiah Wynn, if you want to do that for cheap, or whatever the case is, drafting a guy, whatever, there's a hole at left guard. There's probably or potentially going to be a hole at center, potentially a hole at right guard. It's like Austin Jackson's the only guy who's here for sure. And then it's like you're taking Terron Armstead off that too.
He was like, and a year ago, Terron Armstead was not Terron Armstead. A year ago, Austin Jackson was our second worst offensive lineman. So it's like, you never know what you're going to get. Like, is that development going to be consistent? There are 3 guys.
Oh, he can't regress. After the extension, he cannot regress. If Austin Jackson regresses back to the mean, and that last year was a Jeremy Lin Sanity year, we're cooked. We're cooked.
Done up front. Yeah, and that's Tua's blind side. in a year where I think we're going to talk about it later, but I think there's going to be more stress on the O-line, just talking about, what Miami's going to have to do from a scheme perspective. But yeah, what are we going to do up front? Like,
honestly, this is a great time to get into it, like the Hunt versus Connor Williams. Yeah.
I think, first off, I forgot that he was even on the roster. I think bringing back Isaiah Wynn at a reasonable number is crucial. Like, I would do it 1,000%. No matter what you put left guard, I don't care if you pay somebody else big money. Isaiah Wynn now has spent an entire season both injured and on the bench. Like, I think his value is extremely low right now, and I don't think there's enough. I think just having another year of being
some sort of consistency,
yeah. I think that just having that as a backup over a Liam Eichenberg or whoever you're going to have as the backup there, I would take Isaiah Wynn 10 out of 10 times. So that's a guy that I think 100%.
Even if he started, I wouldn't even be upset. Like, he was solid when he played. Like, I'm not saying he was great, but
if the one hole on the offensive line is like the guaranteed hole on the offensive line is left guard, and you're starting Isaiah Wynn week 1, I'm not mad about it.
Exactly.
Not mad. You're allowed to have one, but the problem is Miami last year was going down the stretch where it's 2, then it's 3 because Connor Williams is out, and then you lose Robert Hunt for a little bit. Now it's 4, and Austin Jackson's the only starter on your entire offensive line. And it's like, now you have 4 holes on the O-line. This team needs to fix it. But yeah, I think it's probably a good time to get into this whole, who are we going to re-sign as far as Robert Hunt or Connor Williams? I know both of us kind of have the same take. I'll let you go first. Yeah, who would you go with if there's one that you have to go with? And then do you think that there's a way that they can bring back both?
So I'll start with this. I'm a huge proponent of consistency across the offensive line over the course of a few years. To me, when you look back at a couple of those Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line back in the Triple B days and most, competent offensive lines, they're usually pretty consistent over a few years, because I would rather have a group that knows how to play together where all of them are technically lesser players than a bunch of new guys who are all better but playing for the first time in a new season. To me, consistency is a huge part of that group. They have to be playing in unison. They have to know what, they like to do. And I just think consistency is just a huge part of that. So for me, if you can bring back Isaiah Wynn at a decent cap hit, that's great for me. Obviously we're discussing the Terron Armstead retirement thing. I'd assume he's coming back. Like, that's where I'm leaning.
I think so too. That's where I'm leaning as well.
And then even if he's gone, you're probably going to have Kendall Lamb or, a guy who's not that elite. You know what you're going to get. You're either getting Terron Armstead or you're getting ex-free agent who you're probably not spending that much money on anyways. So then it comes back down to what this conversation is about, which is Connor Williams versus Robert Hunt. And to me, this is relatively easy. And I know it is for Tyler too. It sucks that we agree on this, but to me, I'm all in on re-signing Robert Hunt. Obviously, he was drafted by us and he's developed super well. One of the guys who came from that 2020 class who has really stood out. And he's just been awesome. He's a mauler, but he's also big, fast. Like, to be honest, he can do everything that you want from an offensive lineman. He was able to transfer from that scheme that we were running with, I can't remember his name right now. Old white dude with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Oh my God.
Chad O'Shea.
Oh, Chad O'Shea. And then who was it after? Chan Gailey. Oh my God. I should not host a podcast with Chan Gailey. He was able to transfer across schemes after being more in a power gap to this more inside-outside zone scheme, and he's
even better.
Oh, and he's done it beautifully. So he's proven he can work in both. He's played better in this role, even though he's a massive human being, because even at that massive size, he can still move. Now, obviously, Connor Williams has been great too. He was borderline, like, other than snapping, like with his run blocking and pass protection, he was arguably a top 3 center in the NFL when he was healthy last year. So that's what you have going for him. And obviously he's been pretty good when you brought him in from Dallas in free agency a couple years ago. For me, though, it's definitely Robert Hunt, just because I think you can get him for 12 to 15 million. Obviously, that's going to be more expensive than what you would think Connor Williams will get, just because he's not going to be ready to sign until after June, according to his agent and all the reports that are going around right now. But to me, if you can bring back Robert Hunt, torn ACL, you don't know how he's going to look coming back from that. To me, bringing back Robert Hunt to solidify that right side, that opposite side for Tua, to me, that's a huge, huge, huge piece of this. And I also think, and I know Tyler's going to speak more about this, getting rid of Connor Williams, I don't want to say addition by subtraction because that sounds like that's almost demeaning to a guy of the caliber of a Connor Williams. But we were going to get into this, and we're going to get into the whole offense and the offensive evolution, but I'll quickly hit on the point that this offense was way too based on timing. And you saw that when Connor Williams was out, that actually had a huge hindrance on the offense. And I know what people are thinking, like, oh, then why do you want to get rid of him? We should probably have him then. To me, that forces Mike McDaniel to change the way the offense is run because you don't have Connor Williams. So if it was me and I was the general manager and I was Chris Greer, it's one of those things where it's like the manager in the baseball clubhouse, like Moneyball. It's like, I'm taking Connor Williams off the team. You cannot use him. You have to figure this out.
Here's my thing with Connor Williams and whether or not Miami should re-sign him. I think as far as the player and his value goes individually, 100% should re-sign him. Like, just based on the fact that I think he will be underpaid. I think he'll be undervalued by the market. I think due to the injury, probably a good bargain get to keep Connor Williams. However, if that means that you're running it back with the same style of scheme, which Mike McDaniel just came out and said that there's going to be evolution and nothing will ever be a copy and paste. But if you're going to come out and be as timing oriented as you were last year, you need Connor Williams to be healthy for every game, and coming off of a Achilles, ACL.
Is he even going to be ready for week one? Like, we don't even know that.
You're not. I don't think that there's many, if any, other centers in the NFL that can do what Connor Williams does without significant practice reps to get there. It took Connor Williams. I mean, look at where Miami got on pre-snap penalties from year 1 to year 2 of Connor Williams. It took a crazy leap where Miami got significantly better, and then Connor Williams is out, and what happens? You're back to being that pre-snap, team that cannot get to the line in time, can't snap the ball, can't identify protections the way you want to, you're not avoiding delay of games or false starts. Like, I think that Connor Williams' value is severe. Like, it's very big to this current iteration of the Miami Dolphins team, but you can't be that team next year. It will not work. You can't be a team that is that predicated on timing, and then as soon as your timing gets thrown off, whether it be teams like the Chiefs are going to just have L'Jarius Sneed stand in Tyreek Hill's space and jam him to all hell, or whether it's teams that are just mauling your O-line quickly, or forcing Tua to get off spots by having good linebackers who can drop like the Ravens did, where Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith were just dominating and getting to their spots. Like, you have to be able to get to second looks on the field and have full field reads designed for Tua in order for this offense to succeed. And I just don't know if bringing back Connor, we don't know how good Connor Williams is as just a standalone O-lineman in a traditional drop back passing game because of the fact that he hasn't played in it in Miami. He simply has not. So that's where it gets weird. And I don't think that we should get rid of him so Mike McDaniel changes things. If Mike McDaniel already is thinking that bringing Connor Williams back means you're going to run back to the same offense, then this team is set up to fail. I understand changing out of necessity, but Mike McDaniel, the necessity should have been the fact that you ended the season as horribly as you did. It should not be that you don't have Connor Williams. It should be that you ended the season horribly with a center that, as bad as Liam Eichenberg played at times, was replacement level, and you just couldn't get any of the same timing elements, even though your offensive line didn't play horrible from a protection quick game standpoint. I think the number one thing for McDaniel should be changing the offense no matter what. So in that case, I would say bring back Connor Williams. But at the same time, if it really takes him being gone to change some of the things about this offense and become more of that, running between the tackles, longer developing passing play team that doesn't just rely on timing and quick throws, I'm okay with it. I'm still
maybe some plays with more than 2 routes,
Yeah, I think the amount of these times where we're going to see these timing bits on the field and all of these RPOs and so many quick play action timing plays that don't really have answers when things go wrong, I think you're going to talk about all this talk about Tua needing to be a better off-script quarterback, which I agree. He's pretty awful when it comes to that. But we're also in a situation where the Dolphins are not a good third, fourth read team. And I think that's something that just has to change fundamentally. That's going to have to change through, switching up the offense to get longer, deeper, more man route concepts, like putting 4 or 5 man concept like on the field with full field reads. That's going to come with going out and signing 3rd, 4th wide receivers, pass catching tight ends, getting the running backs involved even more in the passing game. There's going to have to be a fundamental switch. So I don't think Connor Williams is necessarily the only thing that matters in that situation, but he could be the catalyst for why Miami needs to change in that direction. And I think at this point, bring him back or not, we have to be hoping they do. And I think at this point, we're just looking for hints that they're going to change and not bringing back Connor Williams. I think a lot of reason people like myself would be like a little positive about it is because it's a hint in that right direction.
And for what it's worth, with Xavien Howard's money coming off the books, not this league year, but next league year, and Connor Williams probably not being able to sign with anyone until you know how his rehab is going, till after June 1st, you can use a lot of that money that Xavien Howard's new release cap hit has taken, and you can probably give that to Connor Williams. Obviously not all of it, but a lot of that can go towards Connor Williams. So that definitely opens up the opportunity, because before that, it might have been hard regardless to bring him back. Just again, the Miami Dolphins are under a really tight kind of cap and financial situation. They're really tight against the cap right now. I think they're still negative 27 mil. In cap space, and obviously they'll do some restructures and some stuff to get under that. But for now, or at least before Xavien Howard was released, it was definitely still, for me, I was like, okay, there's not a chance we bring back Connor. He might not be ready for week 1. There's no point. Now with Xavien Howard being released, it makes a little bit more sense. Like you said, I think you're right that the organization, like if it takes Connor Williams being off the team for him to change, or for Mike McDaniel to change something, that's probably not a great sign. But to me, it was just more one of those things where Chris Greer can almost force his hand just so he doesn't rely on it, which, again, I agree. I don't think Mike McDaniel would be like that. I mean, we saw the evolution from 2022 to 2023. I mean, the offense looked significantly different, even though Connor Williams is still there. So we know there's going to be some sort of evolution. And we've talked about this before, but if you can marry, the passing game from year 1 of the McDaniel offense and the running game from year 2, I really think you have something there. Obviously that comes with bringing in more guys and, like you said, more pass catching options.
I think options
under Waddle and Tyreek. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Miami, regardless of how you feel about a Braxton Berrios type, a Chase Claypool type, a Robbie Chosen type, Miami felt way more comfortable throwing the ball to Mike Gesicki and Trent Sherfield than they did those guys. Like, way more comfortable. Trent Sherfield was making big catches in big scenarios in a lot of games. And that was a guy that I campaigned pretty much Miami should not have let him go 100%.
What a perfect wide receiver 3. Oh my God.
A perfect slot option. And now, depending on how San Francisco tenders a guy like Juwan Jennings, I think that's a guy that you should be looking pretty heavily into. But, if he's a second round tender, don't even try it if you have to give up a second round pick to San Francisco. But still, if that was a guy that you want to bring back. Miami needs big slot types. They need guys that when a play goes wrong, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are running these, finesse-based routes where they're just trying to get open by sewing a dude up down the field, and those aren't working. You need a guy that isn't necessarily open that you can throw the ball to and say, hey, go make a tough catch. There was no guy on this roster that Miami could do that with.
It was supposed to be Cedric Wilson, but he couldn't really do it. I mean, he kind of came on strong at the end of the year, but it was way too late, way too little, way too late. And
Wilson can be number 5. If you want him to be wide receiver 5, sure. But you better not be going into the year thinking it's Eric Ezukama.
No.
It's
funny? The Devontae Parker sounds perfect, which is so hilarious. The back shoulder ball, obviously he's not as physical over the middle and he can't really get open, but to me it's just having a guy you can go up with a 50-50 ball to, that'd be nice. And I'm kind of joking just because, he obviously used to be on the team. But to me, dude, Trent Sherfield was so perfect. He was a reliable catcher. He was a great blocker in the run game. I really never understood why we didn't bring him back. And then they tried to piece it together.
And the number was insignificant too.
It was nothing. It was
maybe $2 million from Buffalo.
It was close to the minimum. That's all I remember.
Yeah, it was close to the league minimum. And it's you let him go to a contender, a rival.
And
contender.
Chase Claypool was the plan after Robbie Chosen. I don't want to bury these guys. I think I said it last time too. If these two guys are on the team next year, I'm not watching. I'm definitely gonna watch, but I'm not watching.
Robbie Chosen was signed because he was in the area. They signed that man because I saw him at a local park. I won't name drop, but I saw him at a local park about 25 minutes away from the stadium. Like, I don't know, a month before he got signed. They signed Robbie Josen because he wanted a chance to go play for his hometown team, and they were like, sure, we'll give you the camp body invite. There was no way he should have made the roster. There was no way, and I mean, there was a while where he wasn't playing there, but he should have never been getting significant snaps. Chase Claypool, that's not a player.
Let's not talk about it. Like when people on Twitter were like, "Oh, Chase Claypool," regardless if they were talking about him as a tight end or as him as this big body receiver, and they were talking about him in Pittsburgh, all of his touchdowns came from design touches in the red zone. I didn't want to hear it, and then every time Chase Claypool stepped on the field as a Dolphin, it didn't work out. I don't want to hear about those two guys anymore. Like, they should not be on the team, and we should have an actual plan for wide receiver 3. And that guy should have a skill set that, can match what Tyreek and Waddle can't do that well. And again, Trent Sherfield, like, just think about him as a player and in that year one offense. That's what I'm imagining. And like you said, Eric Ezukanma, really fun as a gadget guy out of the backfield. He can also not be the plan because like we saw from the passing concepts this past year, there weren't many that you could really rely on. Like, I still feel like, dude, the passing offense from the year one in the McDaniel offense was beautiful to watch, and the offense just became so Tyreek-centric and so first-read focused and so timing-focused that it just messed everything up.
They ran Tyreek into the ground. I mean, I know that we talk about, like, oh, yeah, like, Tyreek, like, should be able to take the beat. Tyreek is running, I know he's not running a ton of routes, but he's running more, like, just from a distance standpoint than just about anybody in the league. He's killing it in yards per route run. Like, he's touching the ball a lot for when he's on the field. Like, there's a reason for Tyreek Hill to be beat down by the end of the season. Like,
he's making new routes. Like, Mike McDaniel's having run routes that have never been done before because he's the only one who can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, from week 1 on, Mike McDaniel was having Tyreek run literally, like, almost every play, a half motion into a yard that didn't break until 20 yards down the field where Tyreek is running.
He's running like 30-yard comebacks. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, those things are great, and those are things that I do want to continue to see in the offense because against most teams, they were carving them up. Those are great routes to run. However, when there's going to be 40% of snaps or whatever, what did Tyreek play? 60% of Miami snaps? There's going to be 40% of snaps where the best wide receiver in the AFC, minimum, is not on the field, and you need to have an option to go to. And when you're playing Buffalo and you need to have a Tua comeback drive, it cannot be a corner route to Chase Claypool. It cannot. That cannot happen. It cannot be that.
I was there, and I saw the ball go up, and I said, "That's not good." I said, "That's not good." I saw because it was also just like Tua thought like it was going to be Tyreek, and in Tua's head he's thinking, it doesn't matter. The player should run the play how it's supposed to be ran. So I'm going to throw it there. It's the correct read. I don't think it was a correct read, but like in his head, it's like that's the read I'm supposed to make. It's like once I saw the ball go up in the general direction of Chase Claypool, I was like, this game is over. But yeah, that was like a super unfortunate thing to see live.
And so much of Miami's offense is predicated on, like, when they're playing really good, it is, like, I know that so much of it when they're, getting in a rhythm is throwing it to spots, finding just the guy who's there. But so much of offense in the NFL, when the going gets tough and you need to go make a play, is, do you have a guy who just gets buckets? Like, do you have a guy who on third down might not be open, dude will get you a bucket? Like Travis Kelce. Yeah, Travis Kelce. The Chiefs have, they've got who knows at receiver right now. Like Rashee Rice, good player, but like they don't have a number one solidified receiver. But on third down, you know where they're going? Travis Kelce is going to move around, and he's going to make a contested catch, and he'll turn it into a 15-yard gain. Even teams like the 49ers, I understand you'll never be the 49ers. No team will ever be the 49ers from a skill position standpoint because they have 4 guys who are probably like Hall of Fame talents just in the skill position room alone. But even them, like third down, like Jawan Jennings is a bucket getter. He's not some elite receiver, but he's a guy who multiple times a game they throw the ball
almost Super Bowl MVP, Jawan Jennings.
Yeah. Jawan Jennings, really good football player, and somebody who on third down you throw the ball his way in tight coverage, he makes catches. He gets buckets. And like I think your goal as a Miami Dolphins team is to be the 49ers. And you look at that 49ers team, and if they roll out their best 5 as far as skill position guys, it's McCaffrey, it's Debo, it's Ayuk, it's Kittle, and it's Juszczyk. That's 4 guys minimum. If you don't think Juszczyk is a pass catching option, which he is, that's 4 guys minimum who are pass catching, liable to catch a pass on any given down. Miami had 2 of those guys. You need at least 2 more. If Miami's best 5, if you wanted to roll it out this way, is Tyreek, Waddle, Achane, Mostert, insert 5th. I mean, that's 2, maybe 2.5 if you count Achane. But they're never going to, I mean...
You're running out of pistol then. It's like how many plays you have out of that? It's...
Yeah, and Miami loved... Don't get me wrong. On early downs, Miami loved those 2-back looks, and they were killing it when both of those running backs were healthy and it was working. Like, against the Broncos, they ran a ton of gun and, like, even some, like, I formation with some of them and a lot of, like, single-back stuff. And it works because Raheem Mostert can block. But, like, when you need 4 of those guys to go out and run routes, you have 2, maybe 2.5 options right now with Devon Achane, especially considering we don't know what his long-term health even looks like because he missed so much time this season.
He's smaller, really explosive. Yeah, it's going to be...
and that's not the kind of guy you need. Like, sure, it's awesome to have a guy who can be like that. Like, the 49ers have Christian McCaffrey. It was just everything you would hope and pray that Devon Achane can become. But when it's third down, like, they're at such an advantage because they have George Kittle, who will big body someone, Brandon Ayuk, who will big body someone, Deebo Samuel, who can play everywhere and will big body someone, Jawan Jennings, who will do the same thing. Like, they have so many guys who will just go box people out if you need them to. And that's why Brock Purdy on these third downs is converting, and you're like, wow, everyone thinks Brock Purdy's amazing. Don't get me wrong. He's operating the offense at a high level, playing really good football. But you need to put your quarterback in a situation where they can throw it to a bucket getter and not throw it to a spot. You need a guy that you can trust, and Tua trusts Tyreek like that. But when Tyreek's not on the field, he doesn't even trust.
He doesn't have the trust. Exactly.
There's nobody he trusts on that level, and you need to get guys where Tua has trust in them to just go make a play. And I think a lot of those guys need to be like contested catch guys over the middle.
And coming into year 3, I think that will help because again, we've seen Tom Brady talk about the trust and having receivers be open in spots because as much as we want to say don't just throw to spots, like that is obviously a huge part of the game.
Of course, but there are times where it just won't work.
Oh, exactly.
That's my point. Like, this offense will always be spot throw based just because Tua can tear apart zones that way. But when you can't and teams are running cover 1 and you're in these condensed
or cover 2, Tyreek literally mentioned it verbatim. Like, we couldn't beat cover 2. Like, that's crazy.
Exactly. If there are times where you're either running like 2-man or just cover 1 and you're like, this team really needs somebody like, you need guys who can win and go win over the middle and go win on these routes that are like late breaking and man beaters. And you didn't have the guys to go win on man beaters again. It's the same problem, except this time you got exposed by a Super Bowl winning team and not the Brandon Staley Chargers.
Exactly.
It's the same problem.
And it's all like a chicken and the egg situation because we're going to get to it now soon here. But some of it has to do with Tua and, what he can and can't do. Some of it has to do with Mike McDaniel and the way he's designed this offense and the way that the offense has kind of gone to where it's gone from year 1 to year 2 and what we'll see what will happen in year 3 because obviously offenses always change. The evolution of the offense is going to be so integral to the success of this team. And obviously the defense is a whole other issue. Marrying, I think, because to me, like, bar none, the biggest issue of this year was the offense, and this is putting it very simply, was too Tyreek-centric, too Tyreek-focused, whether that's about the first read or whether that's about, getting, like, the trust that Tua has in him and not in the other guys, whether that's the 2-minute offense, because if Tyreek's not on the field, and even when Tyreek was on the field, because it's so Tyreek-focused, during the 2-minute drill, a team would just take away Tyreek Hill, and our 2-minute drill was awful, truly awful. It lost us so many games.
And like
that was a huge issue.
Everyone's favorite drive of the entire season is that drive against the Cowboys where they sealed the deal to win that game, and they like iced the clock, and they scored with like however much time was on the clock because didn't we win on a game-winning field goal?
Yeah, but like I have one other drive that's a little bit better. I can't lie.
But I'm saying that's like almost everyone's favorite drive of the season. Like when it comes to beating a good team, ball control.
Oh, if you're talking about beating a good team, for sure. Yeah.
Like, what was it? Like everyone, and you know what's so great about that drive? Miami was pounding the ball in between the tackles and just said, we're going to be more physical than you. And they were not just throwing to spots to Tyreek Hill. Like there was real offense going on there, and they were able to throw to other guys. I think Durham Smythe had a catch on that drive. Like, you have to be able to get other guys involved, and Miami just doesn't have a guy that they can be like, we had to throw to you.
That they can trust,
times.
exactly. Like, they just don't have it.
If you told San Francisco that they have to throw to, I don't know, anybody outside of if they have to throw to their third, fourth, or fifth option 5 to 7 times in a game, they're happy doing it.
You can argue Debo is that third option at times. Like, you could literally argue that, whether fourth behind Juwan Jennings, McCaffrey, and Ayuk. Exactly.
No, I mean, and Kittle. Like,
and Kittle too. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, you could argue he's like, that's the thing, is you're never gonna be San Francisco, but you have to get to a point where you're one of these teams. Like, if you don't want to be San Francisco, be Green Bay.
Exactly.
Green Bay doesn't have a number. They don't have 4 number ones.
But they have 4 to 5 number 2 and 3s.
They have, when Bo Melton is making plays as in big spots, like, they're okay with that. You know why? Because they are comfortable with Bo Melton as a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. They're comfortable with Watson, Reed, Wicks, Dubs. That's 4 number 2s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Watson, really good player, could be a number 1 at some point. But right now, that's 4 number 2s, and that doesn't count Luke Musgrave, who you drafted, who Miami could have been in on. I mean,
Tucker Kraft was right
Tucker
there.
Kraft was one of my favorite players in the entire draft. The running back options, Aaron Jones, they have like 7 guys who at some point could be a number 2 for a game, and you won't be mad about it. They have like 7 or 8 guys, and it's just like, be the Packers. You don't have to dedicate significant capital. It's just when you dedicate that capital, make sure you get it right.
Yeah, so basically, again, we don't really know. We can't tell McDaniel. I'm sure McDaniel knows. Like, he's watched the tape. I'm just kind of yapping now, but like, we'll kind of see where the evolution of the offense goes. To me, I would love to marry the year 1 passing with the year 2 running, and just kind of getting off these, kind of having be like, if Tua can focus this offseason on working on extending plays, and if McDaniel can marry what Tua is improving on and adding more of that into the offense because he's improved on it, to me, that would be a huge impact on what we can do and the success this team can have. But speaking on that point, and Mike McDaniel talked about it today, the Tua extension. Mike McDaniel came out today and said, and I'm not going to say it verbatim, but he basically said, he's expecting the contract extension to be done and that the 2 sides are kind of working at one. And wherever you stand on Tua Tagovailoa, I think a lot of Dolphins fans knows, like, he's probably coming back on an extension, because with an extension that will actually lower his cap hit for this year, which can free up a bunch more money for us this year. And it also, again, whatever you think of Tua, that locks in a quarterback who we know can win us games and, isn't, Brock Osweiler or Jay Cutler. So where do you stand on the Tua Tagovailoa extension and what Mike McDaniel had to say today?
I think that him saying that his confidence has never been higher in Tua, I mean, I get it. Playing the full season, obviously really important. I'm never going to be a guy who's talking about Tua as like an elite quarterback, but I do understand having, some level of confidence in him. I think it just comes down to where that extension lands as far as money. I mean, my problem is not like, hey, is it going to be 50 million or 60 or 40 or 50? It's just, it's dedicating so much cap to Tua, knowing how much you're going to have to dedicate to other guys that you didn't win with in their rookie window. Like, Jalen Waddle is going to be up for an extension like after this season and is going to be playing this year he'll be year 4 for him. It's going to be year 4 for Javon Holland, who, could be in for a breakout season and might, have a,
and he came in 5th year, that guy.
Even if you can't 5th year him, and like, there's just so many, like, Robert Hunt has to get paid if you're going to, I mean, like, you might be paying Robert Hunt right now. You just paid Austin Jackson. There are all these guys that you drafted that even your hits, guys like Jalen Phillips, you have to pay them again soon. And there's just so many guys on top of Tua that, like, I don't know. I mean, if you can find a way to not pay Tua.
Sorry, that was just such adult. Like, I don't know. You're just like, I don't know. I don't know what's going
I have no idea. I don't know how. I know that a lot of people are talking about how Miami can win past this this year's window. I personally don't possibly get it unless there's a lot of changes to the roster. I think this is the last year that this build looks how it looks. I think you're going to see one of, the major pieces, the major dominoes fall. Like, and how many guys are major pieces right now? Ramsey, Tyreek, Tua. Jalen
I'll tell you
Waddle.
what, if Armstead retires
I
and now
don't
the
think
X is off the
those
books,
four-
it's possible. I'll tell you that.
Oh, it's a
possible.
lot more possible. And also assuming that this might be the last year of Bradley Chubb. I don't know what the cap hit looks like next year, but maybe.
I think
I
you can bring him
don't know.
back just because with X not being brought back, like that frees up 20 mil like over the next 3 years, give or take, obviously. And then if Terron Armstead retires, that's gonna be the big piece to all of this. Because if he doesn't retire, yeah, you're losing more than one core piece of this team. But to be honest,
if the core.
I was just gonna say
four are, you can go for it. Go for it.
No, I was just gonna say this all stems on if this team makes the AFC Championship. And I know what people are gonna say. It's like we haven't even won a playoff game yet. Well, guess what? They have put these expectations on themselves with the way that they're paying these players and the way you're going to be paying this quarterback.
And how aggressive they've been.
Exactly. So AFC Championship is the bar. If you don't meet that bar, goodbye. And also, Mike McDaniel, you're on the hot seat. Tua, who knows what we're going to do with you? Because if we extend you, you're going to be here. But who knows what that means for your future? Chris Greer, you're probably on the hot seat or just outright gone. There's a lot of people who are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, if the core four of this team, if you want to call it that, is Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, if you don't make the AFC Championship game, I think two of them are gone.
Yeah, 100%.
I would be, at least. I think the two are probably the most expensive two.
And the older two.
Stings. And the older two. But, I mean, I think one of the receivers is gone after this year if you don't get to the AFC. If this team loses in the first round of the playoffs again, you might not want to keep any of those four.
No, we
Jalen
might be
Waddle
at that point. You're talking about a full rebuild, like you genuinely are.
Yeah, you're blown. I mean, that's the problem. Is Miami's in a scenario where if they just have similar, it's not like, oh, Miami took a leap last year. Now they just have to take another step and they'll be a Super Bowl team. They lost in the first round of the playoffs and weren't competent for about a month and a half of the season.
Exactly.
They had one good game on Christmas Eve, and outside of that, we're awful down the stretch of the season. And we're at a point where if you don't go win one or multiple playoff games, it might be the last you see of this build. And I just don't know. That's the problem. Is if you extend Tua, are you going to go through a third Tua build?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue this is kind of the first, because he never really had a first build. I mean, if you're calling the Devontae Parker first build,
I'm calling the Flores team that drafted him the first build.
Okay, fair.
Are you going to go through another iteration of a Tua team? Are you going to? You brought him the two best receivers in football, and don't get me wrong, things have to change. But if they don't, the best receiving duo in football, but if that doesn't work, what will?
Exactly. And then do you think there's a way to structure to his contract? I mean, we've seen what Brandon Shore does with the 3-year kind of, he always has it where it's a 3-year window for all of these players where you can get out of it usually after that second year. I mean, I wonder if there's a way to structure. I mean, for me personally, if he can accept a little bit less, which by the way, people don't talk about, there is no state tax in Florida. Use it. Use that.
But nobody does that. That's
I know,
the problem.
because it's like $45 million here is $50 million in other places, and I don't think players understand that.
Well, no, it's not that they don't understand that. It's that teams are still willing to pay $50 million, so they just will take the $50 million in Miami instead of. It's not that they don't think of it as no state income tax. Oh, I'll take a discount. They think of it as no state income tax. My $50 million is $50 million here, so I'm gonna go get it. And I think that Tua has. I mean. Does Tua really have a reason to think that he'll get anything less than 55? Why would he take less? Does he have a logical reason to take? You might be able to tell him, oh, the build will stay around longer. The build that won us 9 games or 10 games, or whatever it was, and lost us games in the first round. I want my financial stability. Especially considering he just came off 3 concussions in one season. I don't see a world.
How do you feel
Tua
if the deal is 4 years,
this
$50 million?
What?
How do you feel if it's 4 years, $200 million?
$50 million a year. Tell me what the guarantees are. If the guarantee is
never getting into the nitty-gritty.
If the guarantee is 100 and it's 2 years, sure, because that's just Daniel Jones money at that point. But if it's 150 or 130, I'm getting a little iffy because I don't want to be paying because I'm just thinking, what if you're not paying Tua to be on your team in 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
God forbid, knock on wood, I'm on a wood desk, I'm knocking on it right now. God forbid there's another injury, or because it's not like I'm saying, what if there's an injury for Patrick Mahomes, where it's like there is no injury history that's significant and he's that good. Like Tua isn't at that level and there's significant injury history. And it's just like, there are two major factors. What if he straight up doesn't perform? And what if he gets injured again? And they're both huge factors that are both like, one of them is probably likely at some point during his contract. And it's just,
and we're hoping it's not, but you know.
I know. And I did knock on wood. Are you going to be paying Tua in 3 years? If you sign that extension this offseason, are you going to pay Tua in 3 years $30 million to not be on your team if it's 130 guaranteed? If it's 140, are you going to pay him $40 million and not be on your team? Or are you going to prorate it out so you're not like, so you're paying him $10 million a year?
Playing devil's advocate, maybe they're saying, well, let's give him the guaranteed money. If we have to eat that salary, we will, because at that point we're just going to be rebuilding anyways, finding the next quarterback. So again, I don't agree with it. By the way, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Maybe that's Chris Greer's, and maybe Chris Greer also could be thinking. We saw Brandon Beane even say today.
I think you're right. By the way, I think you're right that if they pay Tua, the mindset is probably, if we're not paying him, we'll be eating dead money when we're bad.
Exactly, and you saw Brandon Beane come out today and say, like, I won't be here if it doesn't work out anyways. So Chris Greer might think, oh, I might as well give him the extension. I might not even be here when that comes to fruition. So
we've given Chris Greer no reason to think that. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. I think he's got stability somewhere.
But that was trading up for Josh Allen. That was being aggressive and going out and getting a quarterback that you're like, maybe he could be elite. And also, GMs and coaches do that all the time to save their jobs. You're going to extend a quarterback. You're thinking like, you're extending a quarterback because you believe your job is safe. Like, you're extending a quarterback because you believe, hey, we're going to go win with this guy. Like, I don't want to have a quarterback where I have to think, if it goes wrong, oh, we're eating money because we're going to be 3-13 and playing for Arch Manning or whatever. Like, I don't want to have to think like that. 100%. I just want to think in 4 years, Tua's earned a $70 million a year extension.
Well, in a perfect world where I would actually have the mindset, like, let's let him play out this deal in the 5th year. And then honestly, if he plays well enough to earn the contract, it's like, cool. If we make the AFC Championship, and if we make the AFC Championship, he's clearly played well enough, give him like the actual big bag because he's played at that level, or you just move on, which I know isn't great asset management, but at that point, it's like, at least you know what you're getting.
I think the best option, in my opinion, I get the money won't be great, but if you're going to keep Tua this year, which, like, you know, I guess they are. That's
it's
pretty
happening.
much firm. Like, they are keeping Tua is the starting quarterback, and if he's going to be the starting quarterback, I see you ride it out on the 5th year option. You see how this team and him like both perform, and then maybe you sign that extension in such a way that you don't have a bunch of guarantees in year one, and you negotiate it the way that they did the Watson extension in Cleveland, where it's like $1 million or whatever against the cap in year one, and then you suddenly move your financial flexibility a year down the road because this team's in the championship, or you tag him and you trade him.
Yeah,
if you can get anything for him, and it's like, okay, that's fine. I would rather be wrong about Tua and be able to, if you really feel like you're gonna get rid of him, if you feel like there's a chance you get rid of him in a year or two, I'd rather be wrong about him and be a year early than a year late. Just because of like the amount of young talent that's on this roster and the amount of...
The thing is, they've invested so much into him. They're not thinking that way. They're thinking, let's invest in this guy even more. Basically double down is essentially what they're thinking.
That's what they've continued to do. They doubled down on Tua when they brought in McDaniel and committed to this build. And because there really was a sentiment that, like, when we were hiring a new coach, there was a chance that this team could go full rebuild. And a lot of people wanted a full rebuild, like fans and stuff. Not necessarily even moving on from Tua, just giving Tua a second full rebuild, and they never did that. So you're not just committing to Tua, you're committing to this build of the team, which is it's very stars and scrubs, it's very LA Rams. It's like, and the thing is that those LA Rams teams, the only reason they're happy is because they got the ring. Don't get me wrong, Matthew Stafford,
if they didn't win,
Cooper Kupp are getting them the playoffs. Like, they're getting them to the playoffs and getting them playoff success. But if they didn't win, You're not looking at that Rams team the same way. Like, you might be looking at this team the way you are looking at a 49ers team. Like a Jimmy G 49ers team, where it's like, now we've got to hope that we can become generational at like 5 spots on our offense, and then, have to go draft a quarterback and pray that he works out. I don't think the build is sustainable past a couple of years down the road, just because of how much money they're going to be pushing. And then do you want to be a year early on that and give Mike McDaniel full time to construct a new offense for a new, build? Or I don't know. There's just so many factors.
All right. Well, honestly, there's so much time to talk about Tua. There's so much time to talk about the evolution of this team and where the team's going to go. We're going to end off with the random Dolphin segment that we're going to do at the end of most podcasts here, if not all of them. I hope we do it for all of them. I'll start. And this one, again, not so random, but he's almost forgotten about. But I just wanted to give him a shout out just because I actually really thought he could be something. This was more when I was younger. I didn't understand. I wasn't actually scouting guys or watching film or doing any of that stuff. Preston Williams. I thought that guy could really be a wide receiver too. I really thought there was something real there. So shout out to him. He's our Ram Dolphin for this Ram Dolphin segment for this podcast. Tyler, who do you have?
First off, I just want to go for a minute on Preston Williams. I thought that he genuinely could be a really good receiver for this team, at least a depth option. I don't think you're alone in that. I think a lot of people thought that when he was I don't remember who. There was definitely a big name corner that he cooked in joint practices, and I don't remember who it was. But there was a year where we genuinely thought Preston Williams could be that guy. And he always had the drop issues, which was concerning. But there were just times where he showed that he could be a straight up monster. And I think also him being the best Madden receiver of all time probably contributed to that too. Because him in Madden franchise, disgusting. Because he was 6'5" and could moss everybody. But my random Dolphin is another guy that, without watching tape, I just randomly thought would be that dude. And we brought this up before the show because we were talking about Xavien Howard. And it was the other starting corner alongside Byron Maxwell in Xavien Howard's rookie year in Tony Lippett, who transferred over he came to Miami as a wide receiver, played, I believe, the entire first year at receiver, didn't really play, but was on the roster listed. Then 2016 came out at corner and had 4 interceptions. And I thought Tony Lippett was going to be that guy for God knows what reason, but yeah, he's my random Dolphin. You had Preston Williams, both 2 guys that we were, I guess, higher on than the crowd. So, yeah, I think that's a fun way to wrap it up.
100%. Thank you guys so much for listening. We thought this was going to be a shorter one. Obviously, when we get into Tua, I don't think it's ever going to be short. I think that deserves some nuance and that deserves some well-deserved discussion. We're going to keep bringing that back. I mean, there's always going to be, we'll definitely be talking about the Tua extension whenever it comes and what that means for the offense. And if the extension doesn't come or the number, whatever. So much to talk about. We're so excited to be back. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching, of course, on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, and, rate and all that stuff. It feels so weird saying that, by the way, just to be so to be genuine here. It feels so weird actually saying that. Honestly, we just appreciate you guys watching, listening, and we hope you enjoy it because we know we enjoy making it. So thank you guys so much for doing all of that stuff, and we'll see you next time.